This car right here is my broken 2009 Mercedes E350. Now this car is not financed, and I didn't buy it by loaning money from the bank. In fact, I didn't actually buy this car at all. So you might be wondering how this car ended up on my driveway. Well, I actually swapped it for a Mercedes CLS 320 that when I got it came with a couple of issues that needed rectifying. And how did I get the CLS? Well, that was from swapping my old Golf GT TDI with a blown turbo, which again, I took care of and more. And how did I get that Golf? Yep, I swapped it for a Vauxhall Astra SRI that this time I did actually buy for £150. Oh, and that was broken too. In the last video, I did a few upgrades to the CLS to make it that little bit nicer. And then I swapped that car on for this, which I still think is crazy looking back at where I started out. And of course, this car is broken, but just like all the others, I'm determined to find out why. And to start with, the car has a really bad knocking noise coming somewhere from either the driver's side or the passenger side, so we're going to have to take a look at that. And of course, the dreaded engine light on the dashboard, which I'm yet to get to the bottom of exactly why. I've also noticed a small bit of oil appear on the driveway since getting this Mercedes back home, so that is another thing we're going to have to take a look at. But before we dive into all of that, I want to find out why this car is making such a bad knocking noise from the front. I have got a drop link because I'm assuming that is what it's going to be, but for now I'm not sure, so I guess we should get the tools out and get cracking on. So I'm going to start off on the driver's side because that's where I think the noise is actually coming from. I'm going to get the car jacked up and of course take the wheel off, and now we can have a better look. If I'm being completely honest, I've not actually diagnosed as to what is making the horrible clunking noise. The only thing I can assume is the drop link. I have got another one, so we're going to change that out anyway. And well, apart from that, I'm just going to have a bit of a kind of move around in here, get the crowbar and see if anything is moving. So from a quick inspection, I can't really see why anything would be making that horrible noise, but while we've got a brand new drop link, I might as well get the old one off. There we go. One drop link out. Let's go compare it to the other. It might have been this. It also might not. It does have a split in it though, so it could well be that. Let's compare it to this one, which for a start is a lot more solid. This one just seems to be very loose, but I don't know, especially this one that's already split just seems very loose, but I don't think it's loose enough. I don't know, I don't think that's loose enough to be that actual problem, but we'll throw the new one on because we've got it anyway, and well, we'll see if it's made a difference. So I'm going to fit this brand new drop link. It's only 2 bolts to get this reinstalled, and then I can get the wheel back on and hope that this may have just sorted that problem. Right, let's see if that's worked. I'm not very hopeful on that because it was too easy. Again, it was way too easy. So if it's not that side, I'll obviously check the other side and probably just change the other side while we're there. It just makes perfect sense. But for now, let's actually go see if that was the problem with the noise. Yeah, that's probably even louder now I've done that drop link. So, right, let's get back. It sounds like it's coming from the front right, but I literally, like, can't tell. To me, it sounds like it's coming from the front right. When you're in the passenger seat, it sounds like it's coming from the front left. I really cannot tell. Before we do crack on, I'm quickly gonna order my meals for next week because I'm always on the go, and with ordering through HelloFresh, it makes it so convenient to have the meals delivered to your door. And if you don't already know what HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service that offer groceries and meals delivered straight to your door, so you don't have to go out and end up eating unhealthy dinners. So I'm going to be ordering my next week's worth of meals with HelloFresh, and all I have to do that is type in HelloFresh on the App Store and download the app. And once you've opened your app, it literally could not be easier. Click on Build Your Plan and it gives you all the options as to what you actually want in your meals. So I want something that is going to be calorie smart because, well, I'm doing my best to lose a bit of weight, so I'm going to tick that box. I want something that is obviously going to be low in calorie to keep that calorie deficit, and then of course I want to save time because I'm always on the run, always trying to edit, film and do all the bits that I do. So I'm going to click the save time, which will hopefully give me some meals that don't take too long to make. I'm going to order it for 2 people so me and Georgia can eat. And how many meals would you like a week? So I'm going to go 5, 1 for every day, so I'm not ordering junk food and wasting time at supermarkets. And if it's your first time ordering with HelloFresh, let me just give you some pointers on my personal favourites. First up, we've got the pork meatballs in rich tomato sauce. This is my go-to. I order 3 of these every single week. And then also a chicken breast korma style curry. Again, another one of them that I enjoy on a Friday night because it feels like I've ordered a takeaway. And last but not least is the creamy tomato Cajun chicken. Any of them 3 you cannot go wrong with. They're just some of my personal favourites. So if you want to get started with HelloFresh, save money and also time, then you can hit the links in the description. And of course, if you use the discount code on the screen now, you will get 60% off your first box and then 20% off for the next 2 months, and also some free gifts. Right, now that's done, we can crack on with fixing this Mercedes. Thank you very much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. So with the driver's side being fine, I'm now going to get onto the passenger side, jack the car up, take the wheel off and hope that we can find something as to why this car is still making that horrible knocking noise. Okay, I spy with my beady eye a difference in this side. So this is the drop link that I took off of the other side, the driver's side. As you can see, it's like circular, it's like rounded, the actual link is. If you look on this side, it's like that plastic, well, I mean, it's clear to see, isn't it? It's literally completely different. Apart from that, I cannot see where else this would be knocking from. I really can't. The wishbone bushes seem fine. Everything else seems really solid from what I can kind of gauge. The only thing I can think of is the drop link. I'm confused. I don't know why there's a knocking noise coming from the lower part. It definitely sounds like the lower part. Right, let me get this drop link off and we'll see. So I can undo the 2 bolts holding this drop link to the shock absorber, take it off and hope that this is the problem. Oh! I think I may have found the problem. That is doing nothing at all. At all. Either is the bottom one. Oh! I think I've found it. A drop link should not be doing that. That's that side and this side. That is pretty bad. So I've got to figure a way of getting this off. I might just have to get old Gazza out and grind it off. That might be the only option, but we will see. But then I ran into a little bit of an issue getting the bottom bolt out because it was seized. Now, this grinder is actually from Autodoc, which are based in Europe, which means it comes with this. Now, I haven't got an adapter to handy, so here's a tip that I'm not going to give any of you because I think it's pretty stupid. But if you get yourself a flathead and shove it into the socket and pull back on the earth, that opens up. Don't do this, don't. It opens up the 2 kind of sockets for the other bit of the plug, and you can literally just
you can quite literally just shove your European plug into your United Kingdom socket. Now, obviously don't do this. I don't value my health much. That's why I'm fat. So, don't do this at home. It's just a tip for those that might also be fat and not really value their health. Let's get this drop link off.
So with a bit of help from the grinder, I managed to get this bolt off by heating it up with the grinder and then breaking it loose with the spanner, and luckily it did manage to come off.
And that is one drop link. Oh my god, that is literally kaput. Look at that. Well, no wonder the car, and if you can hear, that's the culprit. That needs to go.
But now I've taken that off and I've also used the brand new drop link on the other side, it's left me in a little bit of a predicament.
Now we have a slight issue,
because all I've got left now is 2 old used drop links. I could just do what I was debating doing, and that is put the driver's side drop link on the passenger side, because I know that this one wasn't making a noise now, it was this one.
but I feel like if I do that, it's just a little bit bodge job, and this one has got a little bit of a split in it. So I think I'm best just waiting until tomorrow, leave the car jacked up overnight, and then fit a brand spanking new shiny drop link, especially because this car will be getting swapped on, and the person that I swap with may not be mechanically minded and may have to pay at least 60 quid probably to get that drop link changed at a future date. So we're going to do the right thing, we're going to wait till tomorrow, head to Motor Stop and then go grab the new drop link. So with the power of editing, I will see you in the morning. And just like that, we have one fresh drop link ready to go on the Mercedes-Benz. I'm hoping that this is the answer to that knocking noise. If it isn't, then we're just going to have to carry on digging deeper. It might be something then steering rack related, it might be something roll bar related, I'm not actually sure, but we're going to install this now and just keep our fingers crossed and hope that that's the answer.
And even though it did take a day to arrive, it just feels right that we've now put a brand new drop link on this side. I'd rather do the job properly once than have to do it again down the line.
And that right there is 2 drop links, brand new, on the Merc. Let's pack away and see if that's worked.
So now I can get the wheel back on, tighten up all the wheel nuts and take the car on a drive and just hope that that has solved the problem.
Right, come on, please let this have worked. Here we go. Hold on. Oh! Wait, I need to hit a proper bump just to make sure. Won't take us long because we live in the UK. Hold on. That's fixed it. Yes, that's fixed it. Like I say, it's only a drop link. I'm celebrating because it's not something worse, not because I've fixed it, because it's not something worse. Well, I'm going to purposely. That has fixed it. Absolutely buzzing. 2 drop links, fresh for the Mercedes-Benz, fitted by your boy. What more can you ask for? That's it. That's sorted the problem. We haven't got a bigger job on our hands. 2 drop links, simple as that. Right, job well done. But of course we can't stop there, because since last video the engine light has actually come back on. So we should be able to now scan this car through on the diagnosis and actually see what is wrong with this car. I'm hoping it's nothing too serious, because I'd like this car to actually perform, and I'd also, well, I'd like to get it remapped. So let's plug it in and let's see what is wrong.
So I'm going to get my scan tool plugged into the OBD port, scan this car through, and as you can see, there's quite a few fault codes coming through on that engine control module.
Okay, we currently have 6 fault codes stored on this car. Now, one thing I do know is that the 11DC00 is actually to do with the alternator, which I already know Ethan has actually put a brand new alternator on this car, and I think it's just having a little bit of a fit because it isn't an OEM part. So that we can that's not a problem at all. The rest of them, I'm not actually sure what they are for, so I'll do a little bit of research, try and find out, and then, well, we'll see what's actually wrong.
And with a bit of Googling and a bit of research, I managed to find out what these fault codes actually mean.
The 14A00 fault at the top is to do with the EGR valve, so that is something we're going to have to dive into and have a look at. The 2 long ones here that you can see, these are to actually do with the DPF. It basically is telling me that the DPF is full of soot, which is what we suspected and which Ethan actually guessed. Then the last 2 are the 109. I'm not actually sure. Let me just double check on that one. Okay, so the 115 is related to the 149, which is just the EGR. So we can pretty much put these as one fault code. We can put the 149 and the 155 as one fault code, and then the 111 and the 109. Let me just double check what the 109 is. Okay, the 109 is the alternator, sorry, and the 111 is the pressure sensor, which I think is going to be correlated with that DPF, but they're pretty easy to get to, the EGR and pressure sensors on this engine, luckily. So we've definitely got our work cut out. We've also got this airbag light that comes on and off sometimes on the dashboard, which I've just been told there is actually a recall. So that is something we will 100% get done, because I want this car to be as good as it can be. But I think to start with, I think we should just take the EGR valve off and actually see how dirty that is and give it a good old clean, and that hopefully might sort at least one of these issues.
Luckily, on these Mercedes engines, the EGR valve is on top of the engine, just to the right hand side of the turbo, so I can undo the 2 bolts holding it in, get the wood chisel out to knock it free from its place, just so I can pull it up and out of its original seating.
And this is the EGR valve out, and actually it does look pretty dirty, in all fairness. That is actually quite dirty. Whether that will be enough to stop it working, it'd be nice to be able to actually move the actual valve in and out and see if it does move in and out, but that is very clogged up with gunk. So I think it would make sense while we're here to just take it off and give it a good old clean.
So I'm going to disconnect the coolant pipe, go into this EGR valve, and also unplug it from the electric connector. And now I'm going to just use some WD-40 and a toothbrush to get this EGR valve looking the best it can. Hopefully this may just be the problem, but I'm not very hopeful once again. And while the EGR valve is out, I'm just going to take the plastic housing off to make sure that it is free moving and it isn't seized, which luckily it was. Now I can get it back in the car and also refit this heat shield that we had to take off to get it out. And of course I'm going to top up the little bit of coolant that we lost by taking that coolant pipe off that went to the EGR valve.
In all fairness, that was relatively easy to do, so I'm going to assume that once again the easy way isn't the way that it gets fixed, but I guess all I'll do now is scan it through on the scan tool and just see if that 49 code has actually gone away. I'm not hopeful, but we'll see.
And initially, although that fault code didn't come back straight away, after I drove the car a little bit later, it did come straight back on. So I think the solution for this is just to get the EGR mapped out at a later date, because they actually cause more problems than what they fix. But for now,
we can now move on to the dreaded DPF problem. Now, I think that I'm going to end up having to actually remove the DPF on the driveway, which isn't going to be fun. But for now, I think we might as well just dive into the live data and actually have a look and see what the DPF is actually telling us. And this is where things started to get really confusing and started to become really annoying. But if we look on the live data, we can actually see that the DPF pressure sensor is reading 0.01 psi, which is barely anything. The exhaust back pressure is reading 49.8 psi, which I think is wrong, and I think that that sensor is broken. So what this is telling me is that there is hardly any pressure in the actual DPF itself. The soot and ash content of the DPF is also very low. I know this could have been reset manually, but the fact that there is no pressure in that DPF is leading me to believe that someone might have done something a little bit naughty. Okay, I may actually have a theory or a solution or an explanation as to what is going on with this car. So if we come over here to like the top left hand side of the engine bay, this right here is called the DPF sensor. That's where they're located, and that sensor has two kind of hoses going down the back of the engine, down the back of the firewall to the DPF, and what that does is of course monitor the pressure build up in the DPF. So if we come onto our live data and read what that actual sensor is telling us, it is telling us, I know the car's not on now, but it was telling us that the pressure in the DPF is literally 0.1 psi, which is pretty much nothing. Like, it was almost reading nothing. So that makes me think, well, the DPF can't be blocked up if there's hardly any pressure in it. So I'm wondering whether someone back in the day or down the line, I know it wasn't Ethan because he's told me he's not done it, I wonder if someone has already took the DPF off and knocked all the internals of it out and just not got it mapped into the car. So the car, as soon as I turn the car back on, that is why there is constantly an engine code stored. I wonder if the car just can't sense that there's a DPF at all, and it is just thinking that it's blocked up because that's the last code that was in the ECU. I'm trying to make sense of this as I go along as well, but the only way of checking this theory that I can think of without taking the DPF off and cutting it open is to jack the car up and simply knock on the DPF to see if it sounds hollow or not. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. If this little item here, which, does that look like a weld? Does that look like an OEM weld like that to you? I wonder if this sounds hollow, then oh, I don't know actually. I don't know. And that to me does not sound hollow at all. So maybe we do just have a really badly blocked DPF. I also tried knocking on it with a spanner and it didn't really make any hollow noise at all. It was worth a try. I think we'll have to carry on, we're gonna have to carry on looking. I don't want to take this DPF off, but just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. Okay, Paul at Sheffield Remaps, who is currently on holiday, has just gave me a great idea. So obviously, like I said, this is the pressure sensor. What I think is a good idea to do is take this side airbox out, and as you can see just down there, there's a line like a hose going to that sensor. What I can do is take that sensor off and then put my bore scope down that sensor and actually see inside the DPF if it's been gutted or if it's still all in there. That is one way we can eliminate that maybe it just needs mapping out. So let's get this sensor off, let's get this airbox off, and let's actually have a look at what the DPF is doing inside. And even though that sounded like the best idea to actually see if the DPF had been knocked out or not, it didn't exactly work. One thing I've just noticed is they start off as rubber hoses, which I could get the bore scope down, but then it goes down to really thin piping. So I wouldn't be able to actually get my bore scope in that tiny little pipe. So unfortunately, that is not going to be an option. But by the looks of things, just here is where the DPF unbolts. So if the DPF does have to come out, it's not actually the end of the world. But for now, I mean, I'm just going to check the live data again and see if I've actually missed anything, because something's not making sense to me. Now, something that I haven't already tried, which is a fault code on this car, is to do with the exhaust back pressure sensor, which is located at the top of the engine bay right next to the turbo. I'm going to take that sensor off and see if it's, well, either one, dirty, or if maybe the pipe going to it is dirty. I'm not sure. I think I'm best checking that sensor, and I'm also best to check the DPF sensor as well, and just make sure that everything going to and from them is all clean and okay. Now, we know that the DPF sensor is okay because we can see that in the live data, but the pressure sensor is coming out and you can see that it isn't actually very dirty, but these things can fail from the inside and not have no signs of it being broken. Now, two things could be happening right now. This is obviously an OEM sensor. This has never been changed in its life and has probably been on the car since new. So that could mean either one of two things. This sensor's faulty and needs replacing, or the actual wiring going to the sensor is faulty and there's a break in the wire somewhere and there's something gone wrong with the wiring. So, like I always say, if in doubt, give your dad a shout. I'm going to get him to come round with his like multimeter reading and just make sure that there's definitely power going to the plug. If there is, then we know that this is most likely faulty and we can get a new one, install it, and hopefully that is the answer to, well, at least that fault code, so we're two down, and if not, maybe it clears out the DPF kind of fault as well. I think if it doesn't, we may just have to look at taking this DPF off and getting it properly cleaned. I'm not sure what the next kind of step is, but for now we need to check if this is working or not, because, well, the diagnostics is telling us it isn't, so yeah, good. So shout out to my dad once again for coming round last minute and trying to help me with these projects that I take on. There is definitely power going to this pressure sensor, so one thing I'm actually going to do is screw it back in, tighten it all up, and actually leave it unplugged and just have a look and see what the live data is saying. Now, this one really baffled me. Even with the pressure sensor unplugged, it was still stuck at reading 49.8 psi. I literally don't have a clue, man. As of now, I don't really know what is going on with that exhaust pressure sensor. So we've got one on order that will arrive hopefully tomorrow, and we can replace that and just see if that has worked. Luckily, the part isn't stupidly expensive, so it's just worth just replacing it in case it is that. I think the wiring going to it is okay. The only thing it can really be after that is the actual sensor. So that will get sorted tomorrow. Now, even though working on cars yourself and trying to repair them on the driveway can be really annoying, the rewarding feeling at the end when you figure it is way worth it. So while we wait for that pressure sensor to arrive, I've got two options with this DPF. The first one is to try a load of different methods. I've been told that Mr. Muscle works, I've been told to get some DPF cleaner, I've been told to do all sorts, but we can actually unplug this kind of pressure sensor and pour all the cleaner down into the DPF, let it soak for a little bit, turn the car on and see if it works. Like I say, I've been told to use Mr. Muscle, we could use some DPF cleaner, we could try all of that, but it may still not work. The second option is to take the DPF off and use an air chisel to clean out the inside of the DPF, which is kind of what I don't want to do because this will be getting swapped on, but I'm 99% sure no one ever has wanted a DPF in their car. But there is some Karens and some absolute snowflakes in the comment section, so I'm trying to do this the best way possible. So I think we should start with trying to clean it out, and yeah, that means I'm going to have to go out and get some cleaner. I might even try the Mr. Muscle technique. I guess we've got nothing to lose. Let's try the cleaner. So, after a quick stop off at trusty old Motor Stop, we have got some DPF cleaner. Now this is by Manol, And the simple instructions on how to use this is take the pressure sensor off and quite literally squirt this in 10-second intervals down to the, obviously above the DPF, so it sits in the DPF. And then once that's done, put the car into regen and take it on a drive. So let's see if it's going to work.
And if anyone watching this video has kept track of how many times I have said DPF, then let me know in the comments. But I'm going to remove this DPF sensor, which gives us access to the hose that goes down towards the DPF. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the manual cleaner hose down that pipe, so I decided to take the temperature sensor out of the DPF and put the cleaner through that way.
That's that all done.
And now the cleaner is fully empty, I can go ahead and put the temperature sensor back in and also get the DPF sensor plugged back in and back where it belongs. And now it's time to test and see if it's worked.
Here goes nothing. We're obviously going to read the live data as we're doing this, but now all I've got to do is literally just let the car, well, I'm going to kind of rev the car up to temperature and let's just see what happens. It did struggle quite badly then. Oh, the engine light's gone off. The engine light just went off on its own. Okay, well, it's doing its thing because I'm starting to get loads of smoke out the back. So it's doing something. It looks very blue to me. God knows. We will see. We will see.
So once all the smoke had cleared, I decided to take it on a drive and perform a forced regen on the DPF in hopes that it might clear it out if it's blocked anyway.
That has not worked, so that is pretty much a full day wasted because we are no further than where we were this morning when I stepped foot on the driveway. So yeah, I guess I'll see you tomorrow and we'll do some more. I don't really know what to do now. That sensor's arriving though, the pressure sensor is arriving, so we'll replace that. Hopefully that works. If not, I don't know. I think it might be a DPF off job and send it off or take it somewhere to be professionally cleaned with one of them high pressure guns. So yeah. Well, it is now the next day, and even though it's not really been very successful so far, we have got that exhaust pressure sensor. So we're just going to replace that, then check the live data and just hope that maybe this has sorted at least that one engine light. This is the correct sensor. So I don't know, I'm not very hopeful. I think we're just going to have to do a lot more digging and a lot more kind of problem solving and see where we can get to. And also I'm going to take your guys' opinion in the comments below. So let's get this on.
So using a 24mm socket, I can take the OEM old one off and replace it with this aftermarket one.
Let's actually have a look and find out if that has worked. I'm not hopeful at all. I really don't think it's going to have worked, but I guess all we can do is cross our fingers and actually see what the scan tool says. Okay, so we've still got a 4.9, which is active, exhaust gas recirculation positioner, high pressure. So that is currently active, which is the one that I thought we'd fixed. And then here we go, we've got one that's stored, which is the exhaust pressure sensor. So obviously I'm going to erase the codes, and that has left us now with just the one code, which is the EGR valve. So whatever we did, it hasn't fixed that problem. Now I'm going to look at the live data. We're going to go exhaust system and we're going to look at the DPF, and what I want to know is it has worked then. That has actually worked. The pressure sensor has actually worked. Look, it's gone down to 20 psi. It's actually gone down to 20 psi, whereas the other one was stuck at 49. which is very, very interesting. What I'm going to do to make sure, I'm going to literally plug the old one back in and see if that one is definitely stuck at 49 and see if nothing's changed, and that we can actually announce that as fixed. Let me just double check. And after plugging the old one back in, it was definitely stuck at 72 psi, so we can eliminate that. There we go. I've plugged the new one in and it's dropped straight down to 19 psi, which I don't know if that's high or not. I'm not actually sure, but that, I'm actually well happy with that. That's one problem now solved. That is brilliant. That's perfect. Thank God for that. We are now just left with, obviously, the 11A7 fault, which is the diesel particulate filter is too high, the level, which means the DPF's blocked, and just that EGR positioner, high pressure, has a short circuit to God knows. But like I say, that one is hopefully going to be sorted. The alternator one, again, is a stored code. It's not active. We don't have to worry about that. So yeah, that is a good start, but obviously I wanted to get more done. I thought that we'd be able to maybe get to the bottom of it, but for now, we're one step forward. Still, well, 2 more to go, really. So I'm just going to put the left-hand side airbox back on until I can actually find a way of figuring out if this DPF is blocked. It just doesn't make sense as to, if it is blocked, why the pressure is so low. But then I had a call from a friend. I have just been contacted by a good friend of mine that actually owns a DPF cleaning company. He owns the company DPF Cleaning Limited. So a massive shout out to him. He has ran me through what I should actually do, because he says it is very unlikely that the DPF filter on these is actually clogged up. He says with that EGR problem, that's probably throwing the DPF off. He said these Mercedes do auto regenerations and it's very rare that they get clogged up. So he's given me a few instructions on what to do that could just fix this with the scan tool. So I'm going to go through them now and see if it works. Now bear in mind, I am not a massive diesel head myself, so I'm trying to understand this as I go. But what people normally do when the DPF gets blocked is reset the soot content and the ash content of the DPF itself. But on my car, I'm still getting the error on the dashboard to say that the DPF is up to its maximum fill level. So if you go into the diagnostics and head to special functions, you can actually reset the ECU to tell the car that the DPF is now back to 0. So one way of testing to see if the DPF is definitely blocked is resetting that back to 0, taking it on a drive and seeing if it actually goes back up straight away. But how Mike explained is if the DPF does start refilling really quickly, it could still not actually be blocked, because how it works is if the EGR problem is still on the dashboard and the car is still in limp mode, the car can't actually do a self regeneration on the DPF, so it still thinks that it is clogged. I know this is really confusing, but I'll try and make sense of it the best I can. So the pressure is so low in the DPF that it really doesn't seem like it is going to be blocked. But the reason why the ECU thinks it's blocked is because the car is in limp mode from the EGR problem. So it can't pass through all of the soot and ash because it isn't performing up to its full potential. After resetting the level of the DPF, the fault code actually disappeared, and unfortunately a fault code did then pop up again for the back pressure sensor. I think it's just because it is an aftermarket sensor and not a Mercedes OEM one, so that is something we're going to have to sort and just pay the price at Mercedes themselves. So with that being said, let's take it round the block and see what the live data shows. Come on Mercedes, come on, please tell me this has worked. Please tell me this has worked. If not, then it's even more digging, but this could well have worked. This could well have worked. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put my foot down. No, we've not got power, man. Nothing. It just can't, there's just no power there. I mean, if that's 238 horsepower or however much these are meant to be, then that's the slowest 230 horsepower I've ever. Oh no! I thought that was going to be it, man. I thought that was going to be it. Right, we've still got no engine lights, but let's have a look on the live data again and see what is going on. Okay, so the level of the DPF has already, well, it's just gone up one. It was on 42, it's literally creeping up as we're talking, so yeah. That was worth, yeah, it's gone to 44. So, I mean, that was well worth a try. And now we know that once we've cleared the DPF, we know how to actually reset it thanks to Mike. But that has just confirmed right there that the DPF is 100% blocked. And it needs some help, put it that way. So, yeah, that is one that we're going to have to sort in the next video. Another problem-solving video. We will get to the bottom of it and we will get this car performing as it should. Thank you so much for watching this one. If you did enjoy it, please like, comment and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Peace.
You wear a hat, they call dad. Me, I'm the dad in a hat. You just like clubbing and clothes. Me, I like afternoon naps. 3 happy meals for the road. My oldest like counting racks. My middle one, she's in a dirt bike. My youngest is just like a mama.